Hello everyone. Am I audible? Can somebody please confirm?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks. All right. So welcome to the session. Good evening, everyone. This is the first session for Modern Application Development 1. Uh, so I hope you have I've gone through the video lectures that are there in the first week content, and may have heard about a lot about AppDev 1. I mean, what are the things that we are going to see in the course coming up front. And many of you may be from the CS background, so you may have the idea of what is going to happen. And many of you will not be from the CS background, so you all may be seeing these things for the very first time. So things like web server and everything, all these jargons will come into picture, and at some point you will see that you'll find that okay, the content looks a bit heavy, but you don't need to worry about that. This is like a scenario of every new course, right? So whenever we start a new course, there will be things that come into picture where we do not have any idea, but as we move ahead with the upcoming content of the weeks, we will see that a lot of things that we have seen in the content make sense. So with that, I welcome you all to the session, and I hope you have a good time with us. Just I'll give you a brief idea of what is going to happen in the live sessions throughout the content of 12 weeks. So we will have two sessions for Modern Application Development 1, right? These two sessions are divided into the theoretical aspect and the practical aspect. One of the session will be on the theoretical part. We call it as open session. So this open session will take care of the questions that are given in the part of week content, right? So if you have any doubt regarding these questions, lab assignment discussions. So lab assignment discussion basically consists of the question statement, understanding of question statement. Okay, so there may be a point where you get stuck at some point in the question statement. So those things can be cleared in these sessions. Apart from this, there will be general discussions on concepts that will be covered in the lectures. Okay, this is the case of open session or activity practice session, as we call it. The other session is solve with instructor. So we will be taking a small question statement, just like a lab assignment, but on a smaller scale. These sessions will deal with these practical aspect of the course. So we'll take topics like HTML, CSS, templating, introduction to Flask. All these things will come into picture as we progress with the week's content. Okay, so this is about the live sessions. I mean the content of live session that we are going to see. At any point, you can stop us and raise your hands and simply unmute yourself to ask your questions, and we'll be there to help you. Other than that, other than the live sessions, for any reason, if you are let's say you're a working professional, or due to your college or other commitments, you are not able to attend live session, there is something called as discourse, which I'm sure you are aware of. So these things are there, which will uh, uh, these things are there, which will be, we will be there for you to help at any stage. So with that, we'll start today's session. The agenda of today's session is to get you a brief idea of what the content basics of web is. Okay, which basically holds the content of week 1. All right. For that, we will be showing you some slides, or some questions will be represented on the collaborative platform called as Menti. Okay, and to give you more detail on that, we have other instructors. We'll go to that. Before that, I see a hand raised. I guess Pavan. Yeah, Pavan, go ahead.
Actually, I scheduled video, but I'm unable to implement regarding that the HTML page, creation of page, and hyperlinking another page there. That how to do that? You please give me some idea.
Okay, so to start with, Pavan, I was not able to hear your question very good because I was having some network issues here. Can you just repeat?
Yeah, in week one tutorial video, no, sir, they
Okay,
have
yeah.
shown how to develop that web page and giving hyperlink to link, another page. So I'm
Mhm.
unable to do it in my Windows laptop. Actually, they shown in some Apple laptop that Ubuntu software
Hmm.
required and everything that I don't know
Okay.
actually. So give some idea.
All right. Yeah, all right. So see, the very first thing that you need to understand here, the course that we're studying is application development, right? We are not bothered about what operating system we have to use. Okay. So just let me just tell you, all the content that we will show in Solve with Instructor sessions will be on Windows. Okay. And all the content of screencast that you will see coming through, all the 12 weeks, whatever screencast you see, that will be shown on Ubuntu. So following a screencast, does it mean you have to have a Ubuntu system installed in your system? That is definitely not necessary. Okay. The only thing is you have to follow the screencast from the point where you have all the files ready. Okay, so for example, when you go through a screencast, you will see that sir is creating some files with the help of his command line, right? If you are good enough to create a new file by right clicking on your mouse and creating a new file, that is more than sufficient, right? You should be able to open that file in any what we call any embedded application, for example IDs like VS Code or Atom, etc., or you can use something completely different, that is Replit. So I hope you also have a tutorial on Replit. Okay. Apart from that, talking about HTML. Okay, so we will be going through each and every part of HTML in coming weeks. So you will all these things which currently look a bit tough will get easier. So as I mentioned before, there will be some things that you have seen very first time in your life. Okay, but as we move ahead, all these things will get clear, and all these things will make sense. Okay, why we have done that? Why we have done. Okay, so if you want to follow the screencast, just go ahead with the content. No issues with that if you are not getting something at this point. But when we go with our Solve with Instructor sessions, I hope things will get clear. Okay. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir.
All right.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah. So, apart from that, one more thing, there can be some mismatch with the content that is in the lectures and content in the screencast and content in the live session. Now, with the mismatch, I don't mean the conceptual mismatch. I'm saying that, okay, in week one lecture video that you're seeing, you might see basics of web, right? Just understanding the terminologies of what web is, architectures, design patterns, etc. But screencast directly start off with giving some information on the web. They directly start off with HTML. So when you go with the week two content, all these things will make sense because you will have the content of week two, wherein we deal with HTML in much more detail. Okay, so activity-based questions on HTML and all will be very basic so that you um, get the essence of what HTML is. Okay, in live sessions are more in collaboration with the week's content. Okay, the lecture videos. Okay, so if we are talking about basics of web in week one, live sessions also will deal with those concepts. HTML and CSS will then come in week two, and so on, like that. Okay. Another hand raised, Aditya. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good
Uh,
evening.
Actually, uh, I was trying to use like curl command, but it's showing that command curl not found, but you can install with. So this error I am getting. So can you help me with that?
Yeah, that's
Right.
what. So, yeah. So as we go ahead, we will deal with these commands. So curl is not actually a very tough command to use. It is just the way we deal with web browsers. Curl deals with a web application in terms of command and interface. Okay. So don't worry with that. We'll go. I mean, as we go ahead, we'll deal. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Manan.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Good evening, sir.
Sir, in this, what you said in the screencast that they are dealing with the HTML stuff and whatever stuff. Actually, I have not gone through that lecture. So, sir, in that HTML, you will be teaching us just some basics of the HTML from week 2, right? And how to, I mean, deal with the code which we write in HTML or something about that. Because actually, I have not gone to the screencast lecture, so
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
was
that's okay. See
I
what
was in
happened.
doubt.
Yeah, so minor confusion is what is happening. The week 1 content is mainly dealing with the basics of web. Okay,
Mhm.
what a web server is, what are general architecture, what are actually web applications, what other platforms we have, etc. Okay. Whereas the screencast. So let me again tell you these things. So the video content that you get along whenever a week's content is released, the video content that you get is divided into two parts. One is the lecture content, the theoretical aspect, and the other is screencast. Okay.
Mm.
So, sorry. Since screencasts are more of a practical part of this course, they directly start with STM. Okay,
Mm.
and since the theoretical or the video lectures are more of a theoretical part of the course, they start with basics of it. Okay, so there is a certain mismatch of one or two videos here and there. Okay, with the mismatch, I'm not saying this is a conceptual mismatch. Okay, this is just a duration or what we call basics are coming in week 1, and the actual content of HTML and CSS are dealt with in week 2, whereas in screencast they directly start off with week 1. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. You go through the screencast, there will be some things that you understand, there will be some things that you don't. But to take care of that, you have things like discourse, and there will be live sessions, just as we have like this, which will also have a practical session called as Solve with Instructor, right? So Solve with Instructor will deal with all those practical concepts taken in screencast.
Okay. So, sir, is there any prerequisite we have to know? I mean, in the beginning, as this course has started, or will we be taught from the very basics? Because those who are beginner in this course, they don't know much about
Yeah,
these
correct.
things.
See,
That's why.
so the correct. So the thing is, uh, we start off with very basics. Okay, that's why the name of week 1 content is web basics. All right,
Okay.
but in case of computer, when we go into much basics, and in the binary level, things become a bit complicated because we deal with various jargons. Right, we are what we understand is okay, what we see, the code part and things and Python and all. Okay, we are okay with Python and all, but what we don't understand is the basics that come up with the web applications, and they start off with a lot of jargons like web server, client server, like all these things will come. Okay, local host. So there is a chance, although we are starting with the basics, there is a chance that you don't get a lot of things because of these terminologies. Okay, but as we move ahead in the course, these things will get more and more clear. Okay.
So, as we go along, whatever practical stuff which we have to learn, these
Yeah,
things will
correct.
get
So
clearer.
as you start to learn the practical part,
Mhm.
the terminologies that you came across in week 1 will make more sense.
Yeah, but because just now we are going through the theory lectures, I have not gone through the screen class, so that's why I was asking that.
That's
these
okay. That's
things.
okay. That's okay. You can start off with screencast when you're done with the theory part. It completely depends
Okay.
on you how you want to go with the course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
At any point, if there is any doubt that you have in as far as the practical part or the theoretical part is concerned, there are two ways. One is the live sessions, and other is the
Yes.
discourse. Okay.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, live sessions will be of two categories. One is theoretical, other is practical. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So was I able to clear your doubt?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, fine. All right. Any other query?
Hello, Adarsh sir. This is Anil Kumar. And
Yeah. Hi.
this is regarding do we need to learn some basics of the different technologies that we'll be using for the app development? or everything will come in our course?
Yeah, so the answer to this question is both. See, the thing is, talking about HTML is vast, right? Although, do we need each and everything of HTML is something that depends on the application that we create. Okay, so as we go along with the course, there will be some things that we will take care of, but there will be a lot of things apart from that that you have to go through web and other resources to get acquainted with. Okay, so this is a collaborative effort. Some things will be given from us. Uh, the things that are given from us will also have pointers to what you have to see from outside. Okay, for example, we have a section called practice questions. So practice level questions are the questions which are not there to take your morale down. Okay, they are not there to, okay, there is something in the content and something else is asked. That is not the case. Practice questions give you an idea of, okay, these things are to be taken from outside, learned from outside. Okay, so although we expect you to go through the outside resources, a lot of it, we will make sure that there is no uncertainty on what one person is learning and what other person is learning, so that we are at the same level when we go towards quiz. Okay, so we make sure of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so straightforward answer, you have to be both. Okay, the things that you give from the course is something that you definitely have to have command on. Other thing is, there will be a lot of effort required from your side. A lot, meaning maybe 1 hour or 2 hour a day, depending on how much you are interested in in the course. You have to go through other resources to understand. Okay, these things are there. Do you have to remember each and everything? Absolutely not. Okay, so we will take care of things where practical and memory based questions remain apart.
So, sir, for the other outside stuff, will you guide us through some of the resources, or we have to do it on our own?
Yeah, surely. We will. So as and when the things come in, for example, HTML, right? So
Yes.
initially we we suggest each and every one of you to go through things like MD and docs. Okay, because this is like they start HTML, CSS, JavaScript from very basics. Although we are not really bothered about JavaScript at this point, but
Okay.
yeah, but the things like HTML and CSS are dealt with in good details in things like MD and doc. Apart from that, if you have any other resources, just make sure it works and it is what we call it is appreciated. I mean, it is not any random resource on the net that you've got. It is a resource of importance, and what we call it is a well-known resource.
Okay.
Okay, MD and docs is one of those, because it is the creators of Mozilla have created that. So okay, we can rely on that.
MD and talks, right?
Yeah, so I'll just type it on chat.
Yeah.
This is something that this term you will keep on hearing a lot. So
So one more quick question. Do we need to learn something about data language also, which will be the like SQL and all for hosting data for a particular
no, so see, the DBMS course is like a core requisite of this application development course, right? So a basic understanding of DBMS course is more than sufficient. If at all you are not very good with DBMS, don't worry. As we go ahead, we will give you enough knowledge on the DBMS part required for this course.
Sir, I have taken DBMS along with this, so I will be getting the knowledge of DBMS as well as the MAD one. I mean, the course which we are doing. So will that be sufficient?
Yeah, it will be more than sufficient. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so currently we are not dealing with databases in first 3 weeks. Okay, database will jump in from week 4. Till then, you will have ample knowledge of DBMS, because DBMS, as you have said, you have taken in this course. Along with AppDev 1, you will be acquainted with 3 weeks content of DBMS, right? So you will have the basic understanding. DBMS at this point is not required in very much detail into application development.
Yeah. So this MD and Docs, is this any website or?
Yeah, it is a website.
Okay.
You can see some of the links given in the chat, right? So some of your
Okay.
yes, Prosab and Parth has given the URLs. Okay, you can go to.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So Devi ma'am is one of our instructors. She will be also a part of the application development core instructors, all right? So she has suggested course wiki, right? So we are developing something called as course wiki, which will be which will go in parallel with the course. So you can refer to that also.
So do we deal with deployment also in this course?
Not into that much detail, but yeah, we will. We have a week's content. I mean, we have 1 week dedicated to deployment. So we will understand the terminologies in detail, and also have a live session to go with the deployment.
Okay.
Yeah, but as you can see, if you have the syllabus, it is the the last part of the course. So it's long ahead. By that time you yourself will become quite quite good with understanding terms of it. Yeah, so yeah, somebody speak.
So, so others, sir, the one more question, which is little diverse, little diverse from this. So there is a component of bonus marks. So would you guide us what the things we should take care so that we get good bonus marks?
Yeah, so everything, right? So what are the components of the course, of this course? So you have to complete your graded questions, all right? You have to be attentive and participative in live sessions. You have to be participative in discourse. Okay, so all these things contribute to having a bonus effect.
Okay.
Right, so this is just to encourage your discussion, right? So the more discussion we have in the live sessions, the more typical and diversified doubts get cleared. So this makes live sessions very healthy and make you a good candidate of the bonus.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, should I go with curl version 7.84 or 7.81?
Versions, I'm not really sure why we don't have to deal with versions that much. Okay, we don't have to worry about curl that much, because even the basic part of curl will be sufficient. Okay, simple curl provides you a lot of flexibility in the request that you're making. So we won't be needing that uh, once we are in position to create a good application. And in most of the cases we have browsers also, so it will help you.
Sir, and sir, there is one application that in the week that told us to install at Postgres, something like that.
Postgres, I mean, is it in this course?
Yes.
No, sir, it's in DBMS.
No, sorry.
No, sir, it's in DBMS.
Sorry for
DBMS, sir.
that.
Yeah, that's right. So see, Postgres SQL is a database, right? So
Yes, sir.
yeah, so it has more to do with the DBMS course. We will be dealing in database with SQLite database, okay? Which does not require much of hectic things, so you don't have to worry about it. SQLite is a lightweight data, so we will not be going into much details of database because we have a separate course for it.
Yes.
Okay. Any other queries?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So, will HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, all this stuff relating with web development, will require, or is there any advantage of these things? Like, if somebody knows it, uh, already knows it, then will it be helpful for those person, or will we have to learn it as along with the course?
Yeah, so see, HTML, CSS is actually a part of course. Okay, so you will be learning HTML and CSS in the required way as we progress with the course. Okay,
Oh,
we will
okay.
give you basic idea of what is required, what are the things that are there. To what extent you have to do it is something that is dependent on you. Okay, but we will give you that much information which is necessary for this course.
Okay, got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay, so there are some questions on chat also. So will we discuss concepts in this live session only, or questions with, yeah, both, right? Yeah, so as again Devi ma'am has answered, both concepts will be covered. Uh, okay, are you talking about this session or in general live sessions? Okay, this live session, right? So yeah, go ahead.
In this session, sir.
Okay, so in this live session, so this is very first live session, right? I wanted it to be a good, introductory live session where we give you brief understanding of the course, which I think I've given to some extent. We will also deal with some basic questions from a collaborative platform called Menti. Okay, so we'll move to that. I just wanted to, solve your queries before we move ahead with the course.
Yes.
So one more question.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
This is regarding the project.
Ah.
So when will start working on that the project?
Yeah, so you can start working on project as soon as the project statement is released.
Okay. Okay. So this project will be different for everyone, right?
No, the project statement will remain same for everyone.
Okay.
So, sir, is the project statement changed from term to term, or is it like same all the terms?
No, it changes with terms.
Okay.
Sir, are we allowed if we can do the project in the next term also? Are we allowed to do that, or we have to start working on the project in this term only, along
And
with
that's
this
a
course?
yeah, so that's a decision you take, because see, whenever you get
Okay.
enrolled with the course, you also get
Yes.
enrolled with the project course.
I see.
Okay.
Hmm.
So by default, we consider that okay, you will be doing your project along with the course. But whether or not you have to do it in completely, differently in another term, it depends on you.
Okay.
So
Okay,
it
so
means
based
that we
on,
all will get the same projects.
yeah. So all the learners enrolled for this term, right, September 2022, will have same project statement.
Okay.
So can you please give some details about the project? I mean, how to do, how you will run all.
Yeah, we'll give a lot of details on project once the question statement is out. Okay, we have separate sessions for that. At this point, just focus on some, first week's content so that you get acquainted with what web development is. Then you can start working on project.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, I will only say that a project is a very important part of the course, not only for the grades, but for your personal understanding, because the problems that come across while, creating the project, working on the project, are far from, and quite different from that you will face in the course itself. Okay, so it is a very important learning curve for you, the project part, right?
Yes.
The project is a culmination of all the week's content that we will be giving you. Okay, with the right focus on right parts of the course. Okay, so it will be a complete total package where you will use certain concepts of this week and certain concepts of that week here and there. So it is a very important part. Once the question statement is released, we will be in a better position to give you more details on.
Okay.
All right. do we need any software? You don't actually need any software for this. If you want to use a local ID, things like VS Code or Atom or Sublime Text, you have to download that. Otherwise, you can use Replit, which is an online ID, right? So you can code there, create your application and run it. So
we can use Replit also, right?
Correct.
If
Yeah, so even we will be using Replit in some of our live sessions, and
okay.
VS Code in some of our live sessions, Sublime Text in some of our live sessions, so that you get the understanding of all. Okay, not only understanding, it should be understood that okay, application development does not require any particular software to work.
Hmm.
Same is the case with Ubuntu, right? So Ubuntu, since you see Ubuntu from the very first week, it feels like, okay, we need Ubuntu, but that is not the case. Ubuntu or Linux. Okay, so it is completely platform.
So one more question. Do we need to download the Linux into because I have Windows environment in my laptop.
Do you have to download?
Do we have to install Linux or Ubuntu?
No, you don't need to. If you're working with your Windows system, it is more than sufficient. As I said, if you have IDs like VS Code or Sublime Text, or if you want to use Replit, you don't need any particular operating system. Windows is fine.
But sir, in the course website, there is clearly mentioned that you should use a Linux-based system, or if you are not using, then like virtualization should be used in your system.
Is it for this course or system commands?
No, for the like for this whole program, this program.
BSc.
Yes, BSc.
Yeah, so see, at some point you need to have understanding of a Linux system, right? But I'm in a good position to answer about the course. For this course, you won't require any Linux or Unix installation. Okay, if you're taking courses like system commands, definitely you will have.
Okay.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir, I have enrolled for this course last term, but due to some circumstances, I didn't complete it.
Okay.
So I have enrolled for it now in this term. So what regarding this project work, I have to do this project work that will come this term, or that is available in the last term?
Yeah. The project that will come in this term, that is something after.
So I have to do this project work that is coming in this term.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so shall we move ahead with the planned things?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, I'll hand over the session to Devi ma'am. Okay, yeah, ma'am, are you there?
Yes, others. Thank you for a brief introduction about this course. And this is the first open session for you, which is based on theory content. Week 1 is purely based on theoretical content, and it will give some information about what is a web and how you are working around that web. And starting with that, let me introduce the online question-based or quiz-based web that is used to, which is represented as Mentimeter. So I will share the link for that Mentimeter. You just type the link in the browser and you can give the code, which I am going to share it now, right? So first I will start presenting my screen, then I will give the link for that Mentimeter. Okay, there is a question related to really Ubuntu or Linux. So you can use any type of Linux operating system. So that Ubuntu they have specified is basically to follow the screencast, whatever is done in the screencast video. Only for that reason they have represented like that. Apart from that, you can do it from Windows also, or any other Linux operating system also. Anything you can do it. So just I will start. So just I will type the link for Mentimeter. So you just type www.menti.com. Then I will start sharing my screen. Can you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So
Yes,
this is the instruction to work on this Mentimeter. So whatever link I have typed in the chat box, you just open it in the browser and you have to give this code 640-26982. And once you have given the code, you will be able to see the screen from your browser side, right? I think more number of students are joining now. Right, so the questions in Mentimeter will be based on open-ended. So whatever you have learned, I think you have gone through all the content in week 1, right? How many of you have gone through the content of
ma'am, we
week
are in
1?
the process of week 1. I mean, theory lectures. We have
Okay.
gone till halfway.
Yes, Aditya, 2 participant has raised the hand. Yes, can you please unmute and
So I
share
mean
your
that I had gone with the content. That's why I raised my hand.
Okay, you have gone through all the content of week 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
great.
I thought I should raise that.
Okay, thank you. And okay, let's wait for a few 1 more minute so that more number of participants can join. So those who have joined, once again I will give the instruction. I have given the link for Mentimeter in the chat of Zoom meeting, and you can go through that link in your web browser, and you can be able to see the code here. It is 640-26982. So you have to enter the code in that corresponding web page, and then once you have click on enter, you will be landed in this particular page. Okay, I think most of you have joined, and now we will move on to the next slide. If there is any difficulty faced by anyone, you can post it in the chat box. Okay. Now let's move on to the next slide, which is the first concept of our presentation. Okay, can you able to see the question? Compare client server and peer-to-peer architecture. So whatever you have learned, you can just post it in this particular question, for this particular question.
Ma'am, there is one window showing open Q&A. Can you open that?
Yes, open it. Can you able to see this question from your end?
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
You cannot able to see the question.
What I have opened from that, I can't open. I mean, I can't see that question.
Just click on next.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. Now, what?
Okay, now can you able to see the question?
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, kindly answer the question. Whatever you have learned so far in the week 1 part, you can post your question answers in this question. For this question. Okay, just we will wait for another couple of minutes. so that everyone can post their answer. So here I have hidden the results so that don't worry that the results are shown here. Once everyone, at least more number of participants have answered for this question, we will release the answers and you can able to see the answers in your screen also.
Ma'am, can we keep these answers short? Like, do we have to elaborate the answers or keep it short?
No. Whatever you're thinking, if it is a one-line answer also, it's okay. No need to give essay type answers. You can give
Okay.
whatever answer you are
Yeah.
representing. Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. I think 17 participants have responded for this question. So still, if anyone having a difficulty in logging into Mentimeter, so this is only make you to interactively participating in the live session. Only for that reason, this Mentimeter is used. So kindly utilize this opportunity and you can able to post what are the concepts you have learned in the theoretical classes, and we can discuss exactly what that particular concept is. Okay. I think we can release the answer because we have some more part to be covered in this concepts. Right. So these are the questions. Okay, BitTorrent is for peer-to-peer architecture. Client server is one-way connection. So can you able to see the answers now in the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Right.
Yes.
So first, just I am reading down the answers. What are the answers? One or a few answers I will just read it out and I will explain the concept. So client server is one-way connection, and that is client can download from the server, but peer-to-peer is both-way connection. So actually it is not similar to that. You are sending a request and you are getting the response. So it is a two-way connection. It is not one-way connection. And peer-to-peer, so it is a centralized one. And next answer is client server is when the server is where the website of or file is present, the client reaches the server to access it. Okay, correct. Peer-to-peer is when the file there is any peer node from where another node can pick the file. Okay. So client server, large and small network. Peer-to-peer, small network. So client server supports large and small. Okay, correct. And server listens to client. Peer-to-peer is distributed architecture. Is exactly where server get reassigned upon server file. Okay, so now let me explain. So mostly all of the answers are exactly mapping to this client server architecture. So apart from this, I will add on some points over this client server and peer-to-peer architecture. So as said earlier, so client server is a centralized architecture where peer-to-peer is a distributed architecture. And so just I will stop share and I will start presenting from the whiteboard. Stop sharing. And I am presenting from the whiteboard. Okay. So can you able to see the whiteboard from your side? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So others, please don't do anything in this. So client server architecture, only the server will be available in the mid of the position, and there may be more number of clients that can be connected to this architecture, right? So for example, we are using the Gmail architecture, right? So that Gmail architecture is based on client server architecture. So I think I have taken wrong pen. It's not writing correctly. right? So it is a whatever request we are giving for that client, for the server, so we are sending the request to the server, and for that request it is this is the request we are sending, and for that request the corresponding response is forwarded from the server, right? So consider this is the server and this is the client, right? So like that we can have multiple clients that can be connected to the server. So server will have all the content that is stored here, and that stored content will be represented as resources, right? So whatever resources are there in the servers can be accessed by the client, and this server will act as a master, right? So it will have the all control over this network, right? So whatever client machines, consider this is C1 and this is C2, and some other client machines also there which are also connected through this, right? So we are representing like that. So each can send a request to the server, and whatever the response from the resources available in the server, it will generate the resource and it will give the response to the client, right? So this is how the client server architecture is represented, and it is a centralized one. And the major disadvantage of this client server architecture is if the server is down, automatically the entire network will becomes it will become inactive, because the server itself is not working properly. Automatically the entire network will become inactive, right? So that is how it is represented. And clients, the whatever the content request is given by the client, only the request will be given. The entire processing as well as the storing will be done by this server side, and then we will get the content from the server, right? So it is the first point we are representing as centralized. And then if the disadvantages is server is down, the entire network will also become inactive, or entire network will also become down, right? So that is the second point we have learned. And then the client will be acting as only a node which is able to send request, right? It will send only the request, and it will get the response from the resources that are allocated from the server, right? And then next we will move on to peer-to-peer architecture, where this peer-to-peer architecture is majorly used for resource sharing between the peers, right? So we will have this architecture which is mainly used for, so all the nodes will act as client as well as the server, right? So it can able to send the request as well as it can able to service for that corresponding request also, right? So this is represented as a peer-to-peer architecture, P2, and then it is represented as P3, and then we are representing as P4, right? So it is represented as peer-to-peer network, which is distributed, and then it is decentralized. That means everyone will be act as a master as well as the slave, right? It is not based on any other node to be initialized or any other node to be serviced, right? So everyone, every node in this peer-to-peer network will be represented as a individual node, and it can able to process, able to respond as well as it can able to send the request, right? So you can combine these two architecture, and in real time I will show you how these architectures are represented. And as you have said earlier in this Mentimeter, you have given example for BitTorrent for this peer-to-peer architecture, and we can represent Gmail as an example for client server architecture, where we are requesting the request using your username and password. We are giving the request to the Gmail server, and from that our email content will be delivered by the Gmail web server, right? And that content will be viewed by us, and then we will log out from that, right? So this is how the client is requesting the Gmail server and getting the content from the Gmail server. And now we will take what about Google server, right? So the Google server itself, we know that wherever we are going, we are using the Google server. So think of how many requests are arriving for a particular minute or particular hour. So many number of requests will be landed to this Google server. To handle all the requests, it will use multiple Google servers all over the world, right? For example, consider there are 7 servers that are allocated at different locations, different countries of the world, right? So this is Google server 1 and this is Google server 2. Like that, we will have multiple redundant servers which will able to handle the request, right? While you come across the week 1 content, you know how many requests can be handled. For handling that much of request, what is the bandwidth is required and how many packets can be handled by the server and all, right? So that is based on how the resources are accessed by the clients, right? So to represent that, to get Google server will be designed such that it will be able to give response to maximum clients that are connected at the particular time. So that only so many number of servers are allocated at different locations, and that if one particular server is overloaded, automatically the request will be forwarded to the next server, right? So for example, consider that there are 2 million requests to this particular server, Google server 1, and if it is one, this is the capacity of this Google server to be handled at a particular time. And if there is more number of requests to this particular server, automatically what it will do, it will share the load to the another server. So here GS1, GS2 are acting as peer-to-peer nodes, because both can be represented as servers. Here it is sending the request to another server because it cannot able to handle the particular request, right? So it can send the request and it can forward the content to the corresponding client, right? So this is how we are representing as a peer-to-peer network, which is the backbone for the web servers. And that peer-to-peer network, which is acting as a backbone for web servers, will be serviced as a client-server architecture to the individual clients, right? So this is how you can really map the concept of centralized architecture with the decentralized architecture, how we are representing. Because we know each and every server can send the request, as well as it can also process the response for the corresponding request, right? So there is one question in the chat. We are talking about BitTorrent as a communication protocol or about software company. So BitTorrent servers, that what the software company consists of BitTorrent servers, that is represented as peer-to-peer nodes. BitTorrent works, okay. So I think Adarsh has answered for that question, right? Okay, that IP and IP address, the next question we will deal with this IP and IP address. So if you have any other doubts based on centralized or decentralized, you can ask it now. Otherwise, we can move on for the next question.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, my question was this centralized client server network. We are so, ma'am. My question was, the client is the end user who is requesting for this information on the server, and the main work is of the server who decides what to do with that information. If or that server is transferring us with the required information. Am I correct, ma'am?
Yes, what you are saying is I can able to understand partially. Let me answer it. If you have any other doubt, you can add up on your question. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what? Yes, you just finish it first.
Okay. And ma'am, as you said, in this Google server, we can there are multiple servers So as it is a decentralized peer-to-peer, so we can send information to, I mean, we can ask for information to any server, right? Or, I mean,
No, no,
how-
no. Actually, your request will be landed on the server which is nearer to you
okay,
based on the location. For
Based on-
example, if you are within the Asian country, how many servers are available? We are in Asian country means the request will be only landed on the server which is nearer to you. And if that particular server is overloaded, the request will be forwarded to the next server.
okay. Nice. Yeah.
Okay, any other doubts? So just for representing an example, I have given this, but peer-to-peer, you know, what you have learned is it is decentralized and the node can act as both as client as well as server.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Sachin.
Yeah, ma'am. What can we just tell? Like, what are the major disadvantages of P2P model?
A major disadvantage is the major disadvantage what we are represent as it can be formed only as a small network, and it can be only for sharing purpose we can represent that particular network.
Okay.
And here, as I have represented here, it is for load balancing, right? So we are having resources in all the server, which is a redundant one. Redundant means exactly the same what content, what it is having in its server. And if the load is, to share the load, the servers are acting as peers.
Ma'am, can you just tell me more about load balancing? Like, what is it?
So actually, it is not related to the. So this is load balancing is what if a particular server is. For example, we will have a threshold for handling request, right? If you are running the server in your system, and thousands of clients are connected to the system, automatically your system will hang over, right?
Yeah.
Because more number of clients are accessing your system. So for that only we are representing a server which is a big resource of services, and that servers has to be, it will also have a particular limitation. For example, it may handle 10,000 requests per second. If it is more than more than the threshold of request, automatically it will be balanced along the virtual storage which is already available. Otherwise, it will be forwarded to the other server which is available there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. If there is any more question, no more questions, we will move on to the next topic. Okay, I will stop sharing and start presenting my Mentimeter. So those who have joined late, you just please note the Mentimeter code. So you just go through Mentimeter and join with the code of 640-26982. So I will start presenting there. Share screen. Okay, so this is the results of the first screen. And next question, we will move on to the next question now. So okay, can you able to see the next question? So if you're not able to see, just press on the next button.
Yes.
Left. Okay. Okay, the second question is what is TCP/IP protocol architecture? So you may learn about the protocols in week 1 content. So it is similar to that. Okay. So in this question, we will learn what is a protocol and how that protocol in internet helping us to communicate between the resources, communicate between the server and client, right? So the web server, the web server, what we are going to create, and the client, what we are going to create, use the internet to access the content automatically is based on this protocol. Okay. So I think 13 participants have answered for the question. So if you have any other doubts based on the previous slide also, you can post it in the chat box. And after completing this, we will take that question and I will answer for that question. Okay. So the code is shared by others. Thank you, others. Okay, so let me unlock the results. If anyone is doing currently, let me wait for 1 more minute. Otherwise, I will unlock the answers.
1 minute.
Okay, I will wait for 1 more minute. Okay, so let's release the answer for this particular slide. Okay, TCP is transmission control protocol and IP is represented as internet protocol. Okay, send request and wait for response for sending next request. So it includes HTTP. Also, there are layers such as application. Very good. So it consists of different layers with different functionalities. Transmission control protocol used to interconnect network devices, establish reliable communication. It also automatically scale and adjust to network limits. So reliable communication is correct for TCP. And this model helps you to determine how a specific computer should be connected to the internet and how data should be transmitted. Perfect. And IP address, IP gives address of client and TCP send data to client. So no, it's not, this answer is not correct. IP is the protocol. Okay. So IP and TCP are protocols, right? So we will, so this is the real-time architecture which is available for internet communication. So let me explain this using the whiteboard. So those who are in Mentimeter, come back to Zoom meeting.
Sorry, ma'am. Ma'am, one doubt. Ma'am, in this, if we give the answers, how the answer is displayed by you? I mean, is it on a first come? Means who shares the answer first? That is being
So
viewed.
here, the participant names will not be available here because it is an open-ended question. Whoever is answering the content will be displayed in this Mentimeter. And if it is based on different types of question, based on that, the participant names will be available.
Okay, but the answer which you showed just now, is it in any order, specific order, or is it those gives
It
the
may be based on whoever have typed first will be available. So that too, I don't know correctly exactly, because it is, since it is open-ended, all the answers will be displayed at the end of the slide. That's it. Okay. Okay. So let me explain this TCP IP protocol architecture. Okay. So if you for communication itself, right? So we know for a web app development, we need a client server architecture, right? So that architecture only we are going to do in this course, right? It is a client server architecture where you will create a web server, and the client from the local machine or from the remote machine, you can access that server and you can get the response from the server, right? So this is how we are going to implement in your web app. And the same concept for this communication. We need a architecture that to be represented for this communication. If it is within the local machine, then no need for this particular content, because both the server and client are running in the same machine, right? So local communication means both the server and client are running in your desktop itself, right? So that type of desktops and all, no need for this type of TCP IP layering architecture, because both are running in the same system. But when you are going to connect with the remote system, obviously both the client and server has to follow certain rules and regulations for this communication. And for that certain rules and regulations, we are using the protocol, right? So for different applications, different functionality, different protocols are used, and the different protocols will have its own rules and procedures to be followed to be make the communication established between the client and server. Sorry. Right. So this is how we are. So for internet communication, right? So we are using this architecture, right? So TCP. So this architecture consists of mainly they can be represented as 5 layers, or it can be represented as 4 layers, right? That is represented for architecture. And here you can represent the first layer as host to network layer. And then the second layer as internet layer. And then the third layer as transport layer. Last layer is represented as application layer, right? So this host to network can be further divided into physical layer and data link layer if it is required, right? So in some applications or some documents and all, they will represent as physical layer and data link layer separately. Otherwise, both will be combined into host to network layer, right? So same. So if this is handled in the client side, same architecture will be followed in the server side also, right? So we will have the same types of layers, which is host to network, and then internet layer, transport layer, and application layer, right? Okay, now, so the data will be whatever data we are forwarding from this client side to the server side will be forwarded in this direction, and it will use the physical medium, right? That medium can be either wired medium or wireless medium for your data communication, right? Wired or wireless. Right, so this will be in this direction, and in this direction it will reach the corresponding application layer to which it has to communicate in this direction, right? So that is how it will, the request will from the client will be generated, and it will go through the wired or wireless medium and reach the server application layer in this direction, right? And after that, the particular application will respond same procedure. It will come in this direction, so that only it is bidirectional, right? The communication. right? And then the response will reach the corresponding application in this client-side system, right? So server-side system application will communicate with the client-side system in this procedure, right? So first we are transferring the data. Some data will be transferred from this application layer, and in the transport layer, the corresponding overhead or the content what we are representing. For example, transport layer deal with the address. So I will write the address here. It is the port address, right? So this port address is mainly used for process-to-process communication. So which application process is running in the client side has to be communicated to the same application which is running in the server side, right? So for that only we are using the port address. And if in the forthcoming classes, you will be using this port address, which will be same for the client and server to be communicated, right? So that type of port address will be Yes.
I'm sorry, my internet connection was lost. So can you repeat few minutes back what you said? Sorry, I was.
Okay, no
I'm
problem.
saying,
Can you exactly say from which part I want to explain?
Before this wired and wireless, you were telling no something.
Okay.
And from that I got missed.
Okay. Okay, so as I have said, as TCP protocol architecture, right? So that TCP protocol architecture consisting of these layers. So why we are representing as layers? Because both the client and server has to follow a standard to communicate between themselves. That set of rules are represented as protocols, right? So the communication medium will be represented by the protocols, and that protocols will follow set of rules, right? And we are transferring the content from the application, which is the request that is generated by the client, and that will be forwarded in this direction, and it will be transmitted. Normally we know that the content that is transmitted in the resultant will be raw bits, that is ones and zeros, right? And we will either we are using modulator or demodulator for converting the digital to analog. So that and all not a part of it. So that we are transmitting the content using either wired medium or wireless medium. And that request will reach the application layer in the server. And from that server, we will get the response like this, right? So this is how in real time, the architecture works for request and response. And application will generate the data, that is the information that has to be communicated, and that data will be represented here. And this data will be forwarded to the transport layer, where additional payload or overhead will be added. In that payload, port address will be there, right? So port address as well as the header information about that particular segment will be available. So what is port address? Port address is nothing but it is the address which is used for process-to-process communication, right? So that process, for example, if you are executing a particular application, and that particular application has to be talk to the same application which is running in the server side, right? So that is represented as, so that particular same port you have to execute it, right? So if you have started doing some simple web servers execution in your first week content, automatically you may come across the local host address as 127.0.0.1, comma, the port number, right? So for example, the port number here, I will represent as 5000. So this 5000 represent the port address, which represent to which process you are going to communicate, right? The server will be actively open and it will be listening to this particular port number, and when the request came from the client, automatically the connection will be established, right? So this particular port address will be available in the transport layer, and it will be added. So this is the adding of extra information to the corresponding data is known as encapsulation. right? And after that, this particular corresponding data will be forwarded to the internet layer, where additional header information will be added to the available data information. This additional information consists of IP address, sorry. I don't know what happened. Oh, yes, okay. Right, so this consists of IP address, right? So the internet layer consists of IP address. That is what you have already seen. The IP address of two versions. One is IPv4 and another one is IPv6. And this IPv4 is of 32 bits. And then IPv6 is of 128 bits. Right? So this IP address. So as I have said with an example for port number, this is the localhost IP address, which is 127.0.0.1 is the localhost IP address. So combination of this IP address and port number is represented as socket, which is used to communicate between the corresponding application, right? So IP address will be used in the next layer, where that IP address information will be passed as the header information of the, and this particular frame is represented as packets, and that packets will be forwarded in the communication channel. Okay, now coming to hardware host to network layer, where we will add the MAC address, right? So the third address, what we are going to learn is MAC address, or it can be represented as hardware address, or it can be represented as physical address, right? IP address can be otherwise represented as logical address, right? Okay, so this host to network address is represented as so for example, you can represent some of the networking devices which can be able to communicate using IP address as routers, right? And then this MAC address is nothing but the address which is available in your NIC card, network interfacing card, which consists of 48-bit hardware address. Right. So this is used for host to host, node to node communication. Right. So while you are coming across the network portion to reach the server, so many number of hops you have to come across, right? So there will be so many number of routers, there will be so many number of switches, right? So many number of routes you have to pass through to reach the server, and that whatever devices that are available intermediate between this channel, that are represented as different nodes, right? So that node to node communication will be established by host to network layer, and that node to node communication is done only through this MAC address, right? So it is the 48-bit address which will be burnt in the NIC card, and the first 24-bit of that address will be the vendor ID, and the next 24-bit will uniquely identify your system, right? So since it is of NIC cards, that's what I have already said. It is only for internet communication. We are following this architecture. So NIC card is the main card which is used for connecting to your network port, right? So already you may come across that Ethernet cable, right? So that Ethernet cable will be directly connected to this NIC card. Through that only you can able to communicate to the wired connection to the internet, right? So that is represented as Ethernet card representation. Otherwise, you can also able to connect either through hotspot or either through Wi-Fi, whatever medium it may be, which is a wireless, right? So this is how exactly the communication takes place, and the protocol. Now we will see. So now we have seen three addresses: port address, transport layer, IP address in internet layer. So this IP address is for host to host communication. So hardware address node to node communication, and this IP address host to host. Here, which is the host? Client is one host and server is another host, right? So from this IP address, it has to go to this corresponding IP address. So that only while you are executing the server and client machine in the same system, yes, right. Connection between your internet provider and your router is node to node. Router, obviously, router can act in IP address also, right? So it is not node to node. Yes, right. So, okay. So here, while you are using this type of address 127.0.0.1 for both client and server, you will use the same address, right? So that represents that automatically it is representing host to host communication. From client, you are communicating to the server directly using this IP address, right? And port address to the specific process which is running in the application. Okay, now, so that's all about addressing schemes. Now we will see the protocols that are used, right? So in internet layer, we will use the IP protocol, right? So that is what we have already said. It is IPv4 and IPv6. And in the transport layer, either TCP or UDP. And in the application layer, whatever protocol you have studied, HTTP or HTTPS, FTP, DNS, domain name system, and telnet. Right, so many number of protocols are available in the application layer, right? So these are the protocols that are working in that corresponding layer. And HTTP protocol, we know between the web browser as well as the web server. Using the web browser, we can able to communicate to the web server using this HTTP protocol only. And if you want for my system to router is to router. So that's what I have said. Router acts on IP address. So it will be IP address. So what it will do, whatever IP, for example, if you are typing google.com. So this is the domain name for the corresponding Google server. But while you are sending the request, it will convert it into the IP address of the corresponding server, right? So while you type www.google.com and click on enter, if you see the status bar, you can able to see the corresponding IP address of that web server, right? So that IP address will be pinged through your router, which will also have an IP address, and the router will have different interfaces to be communicated, and it will decide based on the routing table to which interface it has to send your packet such that it will reach the destination, right? So from your system to router, it is node to node. And from your system to the web server, it is host to host. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so these are the protocols we are using, and IP protocol combination with this TCP is representing the corresponding architecture. And as you have learned about the week one concept, TCP is reliable because first you will establish a virtual connection between the client and then the server, right? And for establishing the connection, we will use the handshaking procedure, that is sending handshaking packets. And after that, the streams will follow the same path, right? The data streams will follow the same path. So that only it is represented as reliable. And moreover, for whatever data you are sending, you will get the acknowledgement for the corresponding data. Right, so that is represented as reliable service, right? So TCP is reliable because of this, because it will establish a virtual or a logical connection between the client and server, and the path, whatever it is represented in that connection, will be followed, and the resources will be allocated in the same path until the communication terminates, right? So connection establishment, data transmission, and finally closing of the connection will be done in this TCP. Hence, it is getting the acknowledgement from the server. For whatever packets you are transmitting, it will send the acknowledgement. It is represented as reliable service. And UDP is represented as unreliable service. That means, for example, let me clear the screen and draw it once again.
What is the full form for UDP?
Yes, that I will explain. Just I will clear the screen and explain. Right. Okay, for UDP. UDP is a connectionless protocol. That means from the meaning itself, it can choose any path to reach the destination. Right. So let me draw a diagram which consists of networks, nodes. Right. So these are different nodes that are available in the network. Right. Okay. Now, as I have said earlier, so now you will take the concept of UDP, right? So we know that it will forward in types of packets, right? So consider there are, so the packets will be identified based on the data, and it will be chunked into number of packets based on your bandwidth availability, right? So, and then this UDP is very fast. So very fast compared to TCP, because since it is taking different path to reach the destination, it is very fast, right? Okay, now this is the data, and we are chunking the data into number of packets as packet 1, and then packet 2, packet 3. And this is the source, and this is your destination, right? So it has to reach the destination. Packet 2 will reach the destination directly in this way. Packet 1 will reach the destination through this way, and packet 3 will reach the destination through this way, right? So it may take more, depends on the latency. Based on that, it will reach the destination. Excuse me, give me 1 minute. Okay, right. So based on that, the packet will reach using different path. It will reach the destination. Due to any network interference or network congestion, the packet may lose in this destination, right? So that only it is unreliable. How the path is decided? So that is based on data structure, shortest path first. Right, and so many number of algorithms will be used there. So that are not related to us. Why it is connectionless and why it is unreliable, that is the concept you should learn, right? So this is how UDP will transfer the entire packet. So this is P1 packet. P1 packet is chunked into one packet, first packet, second packet, and third packet, and each packet will travel in different route to reach the destination. Due to network congestion or due to network interference, whatever electronic or thermal interference, the packet may lose, and that will not reach the destination because it will not get the acknowledgement that acknowledgement is not available here, because it will not send, destination will not send the acknowledgement that the packet has reached here. So that automatically source will not identify the packet is dropped or the packet is reached the destination successfully. So for that reason, since it is not getting the acknowledgement and it is what does UDP? Okay. User datagram protocol. Protocol. And TCP transmission control protocol. protocol. Right, so it is reliable because of acknowledgement, and it is connection oriented because a virtual path will be laid between the source and destination. And here it is connectionless, and it is very fast since it is choosing different path to reach the destination. It is very fast, but it is unreliable because the acknowledgement is not received to the source. Right, so that is why it is represented. Right, so we have seen how the architecture is represented and what are the protocols we are using in each layer and how the protocols are working. And as I have said, FTP is for transferring large files and DNS is for what you are representing in your daily life, right? So if you are typing www.google.com, you can able to remember it easily compared to remembering the IP address of Google, right? So it will map with the corresponding domain name for the given IP address, right? So that is the use of this day. All these protocols are available in application layer, right? And in your content, you have learned about HTTP protocol, which is a hypertext transfer protocol, which is mainly used to send request and get response from your server, right? So the commands that are used are get, post, put. So these are some of the commands that are used along with this HTTP.
Ma'am, can you repeat that DNS?
DNS, okay. Okay, DNS consists of a table, right? So that table consists of IP address, IP address and the corresponding domain name. It's moving. Right, and its corresponding domain name. So for example, I will write the table here because I have not drawn clearly. 192.68.120.12 and the domain name is www. Just you can write google.com, google.com, and then for example 10.15.112.1. So this is for IPv4 I am writing. It may also have IPv6 based. Nowadays, if you check for your configuration using ipconfig command, automatically it will display your IPv4 content as well as IPv6 content, right? And this is for online degree .iitm.ac.in, right? For example, I'm writing. So instead of remembering this IP address, so automatically what it will do, if you type this domain name, the DNS server will map with the corresponding IP address, and that request will be landed to the corresponding server which is running in that IP address, right? So consider this is the server which is running in that IP address. That particular server will represent. So we have landed using this IP address, and we are using the port number to communicate to the corresponding application, and we are getting the request from that application, right? So this is how the mapping, DNS mapping will be done. This is how you are typing in your browser, which is a domain name. But that will be mapped to the corresponding IP address, which is a static IP address that is assigned for the web servers. And the request will be landed to that IP address by the conversion used using this DNS table. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, any other questions?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, ma'am. While solving the activity questions, I
Okay.
think
I came across a few questions which talks about the IP addresses can be interchangeably written as something else like localhost 0.0.0.0 can be written as colon or colon 0. So
Yes.
yeah, can you please explain that? I didn't understood that part.
Okay, so that is what I have represented as versions, different versions. Okay, just give me a minute so that I will explain. So just I will clear the screen and then I will explain now. Okay. Okay, so your question is 0.0.0.0 is represented as localhost address. And the same can be represented as colon 0. Is that right? Is that your question?
No, it was 2 colons and there is one more 2 colons and 0. So like there are 3 different ways of writing it. So
This is not only this, it has been represented.
yeah,
This is equivalent to this, like that.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so actually the 32-bit representation is represented as 4 bytes. So 0.0.0.0 is represented as 8 zeros dot 8 zeros dot 8. So why I am writing 8 zeros? That means I have to write 8 zeros like this. So instead of like that, I am writing like this, right? So 4 bytes is represented as 32 bits, right? Which is the size of IPv4 version. And if you're coming for IPv6 version, it is 128 bits, right? Which is a hexadecimal representation. And this is decimal representation.
Okay.
Right, hexadecimal representation. So to represent that, and we are representing using the colon symbol to represent it is of IPv6. Only the difference is that apart from that, no other difference. Both are representing. So the colon represent defaultly this particular content will be represented as 0. Okay.
Ma'am, that both are same.
Yes, both are same, but it is a IPv4 version representing the address, and this is IPv6 representing the address.
Is there like how can we change it? I mean, if there is a random IP address is given and I want to convert it into this form, how can we do that?
You cannot change the IP address because IP address is the one it will be assigned. See, for example, that is what I have specified, static. If you buy a mobile phone, the IP address represented in your mobile phone will be static. Okay, there is an answer. Consider TCP to be common ground. Okay, I think it is different one, right? So this static represents that if you buy a mobile phone, the MAC address that is stored in the mobile phone as well as the IP address is a static one. It will not change. But if you have any organizations or using the IP address, what they will do, they will allocate the IP address dynamically using the DHCP protocol, right? So dynamic host allocation protocol. Sorry, host configuration protocol, dynamic host configuration protocol, and the IP address pool will be available whenever the system logs in. Automatically from the pool it will allocate the IP to the corresponding system, right? So this type of IP address are known as dynamic allocation, right? So the scarcity of IPv4 version IP address, they have represented this type of representation. But nowadays, both IPv4 and IPv6 are represented to avoid that depletion of addressing, right? So dynamic is representing as it will be allocated dynamically whenever the system is switched on from the available pool of IP address. So you cannot able to assign, but you can get a DNS domain name system for your corresponding IP address. So that is what that GoDaddy and all they are doing. Based on that, they are creating the domain name for you, and based on that, you can utilize that domain name and you can host your website on that particular domain. Okay.
Like in IPv4, what is the range of the IP?
Okay, so the range represents that. So the first range is, so actually we are representing in the powers of 2, right? So since it is, as I have said earlier, 4 byte dot 4 byte dot 4 byte dot 4 byte. Sorry, byte. Each are single byte only. 1 byte is of 8 bits. So byte dot byte dot byte dot byte, right? So each of consisting of 8 bits. So we are, since it is of 8 bits, you can represent 2 power 8 addresses for that range. So 0 to 255 will be the range of first portion. Similarly, 0 to 255 is A, B, C, D. That is classful addressing. Classless addressing is also there. That is based on the subnet mask, right? Slash notation is also there. Slash 250, but it is not, it is beyond the scope of this course, right? So you should know, so this is the valid range, right? So if any question is based on that, you can identify whether it is valid this between this range, you can represent like that, right?
Madam, for IPv6.
Yes. IPv6, since it is hexadecimal, we are representing as that is also represented like this, but it is of 128 bits. So that is what I have represented as 4 byte, 4 byte, 4 byte, 4 byte, right?
Okay, that 4 byte is for IPv6.
Yes, IPv6, and then it is represent, for example, hexadecimal 0 to F, where F is for equivalent 16. To 15. 15, right? 16 or 15? A, B, C,
15,
D.
15.
E is 15, right? F or E.
F
A
is 15.
is got A 10, B 11, yes, F is 15, right? So 0 to F will be the range of that hexadecimal representation. So you can have FE colon A3, like that you can have that IP address, right? 10, and then, sorry, and what else we can have B2, right? So this is how IPv6 address looks like. And this is what we have represented like this. So that means that it is 0. We should move forward now. Okay. So we will move on to move to the next question. Any more doubts? No more doubts means we will move. Okay.
Yeah, so while ma'am is going to the next question, just wanted to add that, I mean, many of you have come across these terms like hexadecimal and binary terms for the first time, right? So, so consider IPv4 and IPv6 are certain types of addresses that is required to store, information, okay? We will go into details of this when we deal with week 2, because week 2 is more of information representation, where we'll talk about number systems in details, right? So start with binary, uh, octal, decimal, hexadecimal, right? So conversion of IPv4, IPv6, how they're stored, what are these 128 bits, what are these 32 bits will make more sense when we go to that part, okay? So this is for those who are not into much of this conversions of hexadecimal, binary. All right, so
Yeah, sir,
don't worry.
Currently, it is going above head, so that's why I was.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's what. So these type of doubts will come into picture, but when we'll deal with number systems, right? So the week 2 content starts with information representation. right? So how the information is represented. The way we understand and interpret information is not the way computers do. So a conversion of language from what we understand to what computers understand have to be done. Okay. So these conversions require various number systems to work with, right? Binary, octal, hexadecimal, decimal, and their conversions, interchangeability. Okay, IPv4 and IPv6 addresses are largely based on these number systems. So once we get the idea of number systems, we will have good discussion on how IPv4 and IPv6 are represented and how they are converted from one form to other. Okay, so you don't have to worry about 32 bits, 128 bits at this point.
So this IPv4 and IPv6, these are addresses in the internet. I mean, or
Yeah,
addressing
so
the
yeah, so these are what we call so these are addresses, right? It is like location of information on the web. Okay, so for example, if I want to locate a number on XY scale, I have the X and Y coordinate, right? So you map it with an IPv4 address. IPv4 address is a location of an information on the web. Okay, now it is not possible for a human mind to understand numbers, right? 162.198.1, all these things. So what we do instead of this IPv4 addresses, we give them something that we understand and comprehend, that is the domain names. All right, so this is how these things work. But to exactly pinpoint the information on the web, we have IP4. I mean, we have this IP addresses. So what version it is depends on what the kind of address it is, whether it is in the scope of IPv4 or not. Okay, so that's what. So we will keep the understanding of this part on hold for now. Once we understand the number systems, it will become easier to comprehend these two addresses.
Okay.
Okay, so all right, so we'll go to the next question.
Okay. Can you able to see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I will go for the next question. Okay. Can you able to see the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what do you mean by MVC architecture? So this is the next question, which is the last question of this session. Yes, I think we can release the answer because we have to complete within the time allocated. Okay, I think still we are answering 17 members. Is there anyone yet to answer? Let me wait or let me disclose the result.
one minute, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I think it's done.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So it's about model view and controller actually it is and core data is stored in database and or indexed. The data can be manipulated This is for user-facing side of application. Interfaces for finding information and manipulation. And controller is for business logic. Perfect. And I think most of you have given the correct answers. Right. So can anyone specify an example for this model view controller? Otherwise, we will. I will start explaining the content. Okay. Okay. Let me stop sharing now for this thing, and then I will start in the whiteboard. Okay, model view controller, it is based on the representation of software architecture, what you have learned in this week 1 session, right? So, model view controller. Right. And this model is, so this model is directly connected to the database. And then from the user point, your view is connected. And then controller acts between the view and model. Right. Okay, for example, consider there are you have 3 tables for a particular database, right? So we are having 3 tables, and then the table names are represented as first table name is course, and then the second table name is represented as marks.
Okay, so what kind of a shrinkage I can plan? That kind of a projection will give me help. Will help my.
May I know who's talking now? I think
He is in the multiple session, I think. Multitasking.
Mark. And finally, we can represent student. Right, so these are the 3 tables that are available within this database, right? So you can represent these tables as models, right? So whatever things the controller is representing, or whatever the business logic the controller is representing, this model will implement in that corresponding tables in the database, and the corresponding information will be retrieved by the model, and it will be displayed through the presentation for the user, right? For example, you may do some operations like I think some other others. I think someone has posted a chat. Can you please go through it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is how we are representing. For example, if the person who is representing, he wants to create, or he wants to update, or he wants to delete, or he wants to do any modifications to the content in the table, it has to go through this path, right? So the controller will generate the corresponding business logic for this creation or read or update or delete operation. It will generate the business logic for that, and this model will execute it, and that will be reflected in the corresponding tables in the database, right? So this is how we will represent, and the final content will be viewed by the user, right? So he will view the content through this after this process, right? So first the user will determine which operation he want to represent, and that operations will be done by the manipulated by the controller, and using the business logic, and that manipulated the content will be represented to the model. So that model will be modify the content in the tables, and that table information will be displayed to the user. right? So this is how we are represent. So model is whatever the organization of table in an organized way, which is ready to manipulate, right? So ready to manipulate will be done by this model. Right, so the data, organized data, which is ready to manipulate, will be done, will be represented by this model, and the controller, which represents the business logic, that is whatever the request from the user, what he is requesting, that controlling information will be done by this controller, and that will be implemented in the model, and the final result will be once again displayed to the user as the presentation. That presentation is represented as view. Right. So whatever the web pages you are viewing in the web browser, that web pages can be represented as presentation. Right. So for example, I'm saying, right, presentation, and for in your lecture itself, for controller, they have represented, Nitin sir has represented as Gmail client server architecture, where insertion, deletion of emails are done by this controller business logic, and that will be implemented to the model which is available in the server side. And once again, after deletion, it should not be displayed in the presentation, right? So that will be done by this, and then you will get the content in the presentation view, right? So this is how a model view controller is working. And so far we know we are using client server architecture, and we are using protocol for communication, and we are using the software model as model view controller. Right. And if you have any queries based on this, you can ask it now.
Sir, where is the business logic in Gmail, madam? Where we?
So that is what I have said, right? So for example, if you want to do any deletion of your emails, that should be updated in your Gmail server, right? If you're deleting 3 or 4 emails of your content, and that should be reflected in your server also. When you're coming back, it should not be there in your inbox. That is represented as the business logic, right? So that deleting operation will be initiated by the controller.
Okay, right.
And this model will be ready for manipulation. Once the manipulation is triggered by the controller, it will implement it, and it will show the content as a presentation by deleting the content of that corresponding mails from your inbox. I think some of the questions are there in chat box. I know little about so this I think Adarsh is answering there. Thank you. See, actually, Tilwani, don't worry about it. So just I have given the in and outs of that concepts that has been discussed in week out. That is also, so since based on the questions of the participants, it went somewhat deeper, but no need to worry about it. Whatever the content that is discussed in the initial stage of that particular slide, only you can stick on to that content. So based on the questions only, the answers went deeper, right?
Yep,
So don't
yep,
think
no,
about
no.
it. Okay. And if you have any doubts, you kindly post it in discourse. We are here to help you at any time.
Yeah, actually, the topics which you were discussing or the questions which you were addressing, and the explanation was a bit deep today. That's why I was unable to catch all at once.
Okay. So based on the queries from the participants, it went deeper that I can able to understand, but we cannot restrict that. You should not ask like this type of questions,
No,
right?
no, no, no.
So this is
No,
a
never,
session
never.
to answer the students, right? So You don't worry about the question and answer session. You just stick on to the content that is discussed, right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think if there is no more questions, Adarsh, can we wind up the session?
Yeah, so at this point, we will take some general questions if there are any. Otherwise,
Okay.
yeah. So there is a one question in the chat regarding the MVT design pattern in Django, while the MVC that we are talking about in our course. So there is a slight difference. I was just typing the response. So since I've unmuted, I'll explain it here. So the MVC stands for model view controller, right? So as you can see, the controller part is the one that deals with the business logic of our application, right? The application, whatever we will be creating, the controller part will take care of the business logic in MVC design part. And that is not the case with MVT, right? So in MVT, template is analogous to what view or V is in MVC, right? So template will take care of the presentation, and the view part in MVT will take care of the control, okay, or the business logic. So yeah, so design pattern varies. That is the reason they are different design patterns. So the way in which the database presentation and the controller part is dealt with defines the design pattern. In our case, model will take care of the database, view will take care of the presentation layer, and the controller will take care of the business logic. Okay, one general suggestion. So yeah, so this is completely fine to have a lot of uncertainties at this point. A lot of things may have gone uh, completely above your head. You may have not understood some things in detail. So that is not any issue. As we progress, things will get clear. So I would just suggest you to view this session or videos of week 1 after week 5. Okay, then a lot of it will make sense. By the end of week 5, we'll have a deep understanding of what we were talking about initially. So just to get the clarity, you can do that.
I see.
Okay. All right. So just idea of next session. The another session we are going to have on Saturday. That will be in the later evening. That is, it will be from 8 to 10, and we will be dealing with certain numericals, right? So you may have come across things like performance parameters of web server, right? So the performance parameters uh, uh, are things that comprise certain numericals in application development course, which is very rare, right? So we won't be dealing with a lot of numericals in the course, but whatever we'll be dealing with will come in week 1 for the basics, and somewhere around in week 7 or 8. So the next session would be on the numerical part.
Sir, in which lecture this numerical portion is discussed? I mean, in which part of the video this is discussed?
Yeah, so theoretically, the terminologies are discussed in, I guess, just give me a second, I'll just go through. So there are videos on the performance parameters, right?
Okay.
Yeah, performance of a website.
Yeah.
There is a
Yes, sir.
video on that. So performance of a website takes into consideration certain performance parameters like RTT, latency, um, uh, client and server cycle distance, things like that. Okay, so we will talk about those numericals by solving some numericals in the next session.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and the programming part will then follow from the next week on. Okay, so if there are, so that is it from our side. If there are any questions, we are open. Otherwise, we can officially.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank
Hello,
you.
sir. Sir, further sessions will be developed as we go next week, right? I mean, after Saturday session, the next session will be updated in the calendar, right?
Yeah. So currently, is it not showing?
From next week. Sorry?
Is it not showing now?
Till Saturday, we have session. After that, it's showing nothing.
It's not showing, right? All right. Okay, it will be updated, but just for information, regular sessions will be on the same time, right? Wednesday 6 to 8 and Saturday 8 to 10. If there is any extra session, we will give the announcement and let you know. It will be updated as and when we proceed.
Okay, in the calendar itself.
Yeah, in the calendar itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we will officially end this session. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Have a great day ahead. Already a day, but okay, fine. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.